Today on the Dennis Michael Lynch Show, we're going to speak about Minnesota, the Somali fraud, Tim Walz going to jail, and Shirley's video. Get ready. It's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me on this Monday. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I hope you had a great Christmas weekend. And we got one more holiday to get over. That's New Year's. And then it is time, baby. It is time to hit 2026 running hard. We're going to have to make 2026 the greatest year of all of our lives. That's the objective. I can tell you that we are all fired up over here on our end to have the greatest 2026 ever for Team DML and for the Dennis Michael Lynch Show. You know, it used to be the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast, and Ashley came in to me and said, "Dad, it really should be the show." And I said, "Why?" She says, "Because podcast is just audio. It should be a show." I said, "All right, Ash, when your daughter tells you to do something, you listen." So anyhow, the Dennis Michael Lynch Show and the Team DML experience is going to be off the charts great. And we are putting so much effort into everything. And our numbers are growing crazy on Facebook by the end of this week. It would be highly unlikely it doesn't happen. We will hit 1.5 million people who are following our page. And so we ask you, please always hit the share button. It is your shares that help us grow. And between people saying, "My God, I haven't seen you in years," and other people being like, "Why haven't I ever heard of you before?" It is a real impact that you are helping make when you hit that share button. And then over on Instagram and on X, I mean, we're just growing like wildfire. Only been on there for a couple of months, really. And wow, is it incredible. I lead with that because the most viral video that I've ever had on X was yesterday. It's actually the shortest video I've ever done in my life. It's 33 seconds. And it is in response to the horror of what most everybody now at this point has seen from this young 23-year-old podcaster named Nick Shirley. Now, amazingly, I got to give my wife here some credit. My wife has been sending me Nick Shirley's information and videos. It's got to be 6 months now. She keeps on saying, "You got to interview this kid. You got to interview this kid. You got to interview this kid." So I got to give my wife some kudos, you know. And I looked at Nick Shirley's work and I said, okay, Nick Shirley is sort of a hybrid between Dennis Michael Lynch and James O'Keefe. In one sense, he has the, I'll say, gonads that I had back when I used to do my border stuff. I mean, this guy puts himself into pretty dangerous situations to where he could easily be subjected to a level of violence that is, you know, just kind of getting your ass kicked to, you know, Charlie Kirk fate. And at the same time, where my objective was more about creating documentaries, his is more guerrilla journalism, sort of like James O'Keefe, you know, where James O'Keefe, through Project Veritas, would go undercover and with hidden cameras try to expose corruption and lies and deceit. This kid isn't going undercover. I mean, I think he's got a greater set of gonads than James O'Keefe. This kid is going right into the hell's fire. And so Mary, once again, she says, "You've got to watch this video." And she sends me the video, and it's of this Nick Shirley kid. So my original thing was, okay, man, she's not getting off my ass about this Nick Shirley kid. And Shirley was at the White House going back about a few weeks ago when all the ICE facilities were the top story throughout the entire social media platform circus, because that's really what it is. I mean, there's so many videos, so many things going on, whatever. And Trump had invited a couple of people into the White House to speak about journalism and how it is that they're going to these facilities and showing how mad and crazy the Democrats are. And so when she sent me this video, the first thing I did was I looked and it said 42 minutes. Oh my goodness gracious, 42 minutes. Nobody watches anything for 42 minutes anymore, Mary. And it was about the Somali fraud in Minnesota. And this topic will not go away. It is on the top of every feed, especially if you use X. If you go to X and you look at the top stories trending, it's 3 stories that all connect back to Nick Shirley's video. And as my son said to me in a text message, and I'm going to bring Ryan in. Ryan's going to discuss some of this with me today. You'll hear him. You won't see him. But nobody knew who Nick Shirley was 5 days ago. I mean, yeah, sure, there are the people who follow him online, but everybody in America knows who he is today. And that's how amazing his work is. So Nick Shirley hooks up with this guy, Dave, just a random citizen from Minnesota. And I'm assuming, I mean, it will. If it hasn't already come out, it will somehow come out. The question will be asked, how did Nick Shirley and Dave connect? And I assume Dave either reached out to him because he knows that Nick Shirley's an up-and-coming investigative reporter. Maybe he saw him at the White House. I have no idea. But they connect. And I know how this works because the most viral video I've ever had is when I was escorted around Dearborn. Some of you may have seen that video. I have it pinned to the top of my Facebook page. And throughout the time that I've had it up on all different platforms, it's been watched probably tens of millions of times. And I had a man, pretty much around this man Dave's age, so frustrated with what it is that Dearborn had become that people put me together with him and said, hey, this guy Dennis Michael Lynch exposes this stuff. And he drove me around and he gave me an education on what's happening in a way that Dave does with Nick Shirley. And you need that. You need that local perspective in order to be able to have a very, very comprehensive, revealing sort of investigative video like Nick Shirley has. And if you haven't watched this yet, we're going to play 7 minutes of clips here for you. But there's another 35 minutes that I'm telling you, you won't be able to put it down. And to Ryan's point, he sent me a text message last night. In fact, Ryan, put on your put on your microphone. Ryan sent me a text message. I mean, now keep in mind, Ryan is 25 years old. He'll be 26 on Juneteenth. He loves that. But you know, he's that Generation Z. He's a guy who's not going to sit down and watch an hour and a half film. And even 42 minutes, his generation doesn't have the wherewithal for even that sort of thing. And yet he watched the whole thing, and he explains to me in a text message why it's so impactful. So Ryan, in your own words here at about a minute, explain to people why you think Nick Shirley's video, which we're going to show here in 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes of the video we're going to play right after Ryan's done. Why do you think this video has been watched well over 100 million times, one of the top videos ever to be on X? Why do you think it was watched so many times, and what's the most impactful thing about it from its structure?
I think it's been watched so much because a lot of people just touch the surface of the problems. Like, oh, there's fraud with the Somalis, and no one really dives deep into it anymore. So Nick Shirley went and he got on the ground, he got dirty, and he did it. The turnaround on putting it out and catching the trend of it was fast. And I think when I want to watch an hour and a half, like I'll watch a movie that's highly produced, but like when I want hard hitting facts and the truth. It's like, I don't care if there's hard cuts or whatnot. Like, just show me the raw stuff. Show me what's going on. Like, it doesn't need to be highly produced. So I think that was the great part, and the fact that, you know, it's 44 minutes. Like, that's some people's commute.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you see something long, you think to yourself, "Oh, I don't have that. That's a commitment. Like, am I gonna have to come back to this?" And then, so I think it was just the brevity of it, and then just the quick, you know, truth of what's going on. And you know, I think that's why it kind of went.
You said a word in there I think is the key word. It's raw. And therefore, because of its rawness, you know that it is just 100% true. Ryan is going to play the first 5 minutes of this video. Now, the first 5 minutes of the video is probably the most edited of the entire video, meaning that what he's doing in the first 5 minutes, he's putting in hooks. And this first 5 minutes will want to make you watch the entire 42. So here is the first 5 minutes of Nick Shirley's video, which exposes the fraud that is taking place in Minnesota. Give this a watch.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question. Are there children? There's no children inside this building.
Potentially the largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia. These fraudsters have worked hand in hand with the Minnesota government as they enabled billions of dollars to be given to fraudulent businesses underneath welfare purposes. Some of this money eventually landed in the hands of terrorist groups in Somalia like the Al-Shabaab, and others enriched themselves all at the US taxpayers' expense. And in this video we will break down all of the fraud from start to finish, from going to the fraudulent businesses and confronting the people who are making millions of dollars from the government. And we will also be confronting the incompetent government leaders who let this fraud happen. And to make this happen, I met up with a man who's been doing his own investigation for years now, as he has seen the fraud firsthand. His name is David. Let's get into this and be prepared to be shocked. How deep is this fraud here inside of Minnesota?
It is far worse than anybody can imagine. You heard it's 7 to 10 billion and maybe more, and now the numbers have been revised and put out there publicly that they think it's more like 8 billion. How I got involved is that where my office is here in Minneapolis, I'm sort of in the heart of all of this fraud, and I would see these child care centers. I said, well, there aren't any kids there. It's the middle of the day, and all I see are a couple of guys standing out front smoking. And then I'd go by another daycare and I'd see the same thing. I said, well, where do these kids play? And so I started to go online and look, and I said, this place is licensed for 80 children. They had 0 children. Every time I went by there, they never had a single child there. Then I started to see all these transportation companies going around, and it was always a Somali driver. And I said, well, that's great. They're out there transportation, contributing, but they never had a passenger, never, ever once. And I said, well, what is all this transportation? What are they doing? So then I found out that in Minnesota, they have something called non-emergency medical transportation. So this is going to the dentist's office, therapy, whatever it might be. And I said, well, how many of these companies are there? And the research came back that there are 1,020 of them, and more than 800 of them are Somali-owned. Nobody from the state of Minnesota ever cross-checks to see if any rides were ever actually provided. All they did was write the check.
So right here we have all this paperwork. And how are you getting all this information about the fraud?
A lot of it is through my own research, and then I have some contacts at the Capitol going back many, many years. And so the data that I'm getting is 100% accurate, coming directly from research done by people at the state Capitol.
All this paperwork right here, what are we looking at?
The areas of fraud that I have numbers for are mostly related to childcare. This is massive fraud that is beyond anyone's imagination, the scope. And so, for example, there's a childcare not far from here in Minneapolis that has two child cares listed at the same address, and together they're licensed supposedly for 120 children. I have never seen a single child there ever, and I've been by that place at least 100 times.
These Somalians, these groups are setting up these daycares, these child care centers, getting money from the government, but there's no kids.
No kids. Never had any of them. They're all fraught with violations, and even though they have these violations, they're still in operation and they're still getting money. And it's millions of dollars for every one of them every year.
And who's getting the money? And where are they getting the money from?
So we have a thing called CCAP. It's a blend of federal and state money. The bottom line is it's taxpayer money, so it's state money and it's federal money. And the problem is the people at the state of Minnesota are the ones writing the checks. This is kind of the maddening thing is you have daycare, so you have adult daycare, and then you have child care, and then you have health care. And a lot of these same names keep coming up on all of these different types of businesses. And then, of course, we have the transportation, and a lot of those same names appear, a lot of the same addresses. There's one building that has 14 Somali healthcare companies at the same address. There's another building in St. Paul that has 22 Somali healthcare businesses at the same address.
And the government knows about this.
The government knows, they're writing the checks.
So let me just explain to you during the show here, we're going to take this in steps. We're going to dedicate the whole show to this video today. Now, we're going to show you another clip of it, and then we're going to go into what can be done. Can we go after Tim Walz? What is happening? So let's stick with the video for 1 second. So there's the first 5 minutes, and that gentleman, Dave, as far as I'm concerned, is an American hero. Because so many times what happens in the United States is we just ignore problems. Oh, look at that. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. And thinking somebody else is going to do the work. And it never happens. This is a prime example. Between Dave and Nick, you're talking about Batman and Robin, right? The feds aren't doing anything. The local cops aren't doing anything. Let's send in Batman and Robin. That's what this is. From Dave's perspective, Dave did the investigative work that nobody in the state of Minnesota, none of those agencies did. On his own dime, without any help. He doesn't have to be, a forensic investigator. He's just a common sense guy that says it doesn't make any sense what I'm seeing. Let me dive into this. This is my money being stolen. And that's something that you need to recognize watching me right now or listening to me on audio. This is your money being stolen. Even if you don't live in the state of Minnesota, first of all, this is happening everywhere, and we're going to talk about that. But secondly, remember, there is also federal funding going into this. You also pay for all these Somalis to be taken into this country. Our money is being stolen. Every American citizen is being stolen from, and we're just accepting it. Guys like Dave are saying, I've had enough. Now, on Nick Shirley's end, Nick Shirley is doing the job that the New York Times and CNN and quite honestly, Fox News and Newsmax, all these guys who have so much money, who call themselves media news outlets, they don't do anything. All they do, let me tell you how this works very quickly from the days of when I was on Fox and when I had my own show at Newsmax. It's very simple. Back in the days when I was around, there was a thing called the Drudge Report. And Matt Drudge, used to be sort of like every media room's editor. And he would just be putting up links to all the main stories that people need to know about. And so what would happen is literally producers at shows would go in, take a look at the most popular links, just hit the surface level on these topics. Boom, you hit it and you move on. That's it. Today, without the Drudge Report being around anymore, now it's, let me just go to X and see what's trending. And that's all these news outlets do. They don't do anything of any substance whatsoever. Nick Shirley says there's something going on here. He doesn't get dressed up in a suit and tie. He doesn't have to have a whole, truck, studio truck with the satellite on top. He doesn't have to go through and get budget funding and everything else and get approval and go through all the, like Ryan said, it's raw. He just grabbed his camera, he grabbed his love of country, and he grabbed a huge set of gonads. He brought security with him, smartly so, and he said, come on, let's go out and take a look. Now, throughout his video, what is happening is he's now with Dave in the car going around to all these different child care centers. Now, here's the amazing part of this. You think of child care centers. I just looked it up. Before the show started, I was looking here in Florida, the child care centers, see if we have any Somali ones or anything else of that nature, or even just local ones. You know, you'll find a daycare center, and then maybe 7 miles away or 20 miles away, there'll be another daycare center. Nick, Shirley, and Dave are traveling around. There are multiple in the same building. There are multiple on the same street. I mean, it's like, you know, it's almost like going to a fair, you know, and here's one ride. Oh, here's another ride. And it's insane. Here is one of my favorite parts of the whole film. Here is him taking Dave, or Dave taking Shirley, to the learning center, and learning is missing an N. It is Learing, right on the sign, and yet nobody in the state of Minnesota cared to care. Go.
Now we're being followed by the Somalis. This is another daycare center, absolutely no signage, and there's no footprints in the snow of children playing outside. $5 million within the past
5.9 million in 2 years. 5.9 million they received in 2 years. That facility right there.
And now we have a group of Somalis telling us in our vehicle right now.
From this daycare center, we headed over to the infamous Quality Learning Center, which actually spells Quality Learing Center on the outside of their sign. That's how blatant this fraud is here at this daycare.
Don't open up!
So this is Quality Learing Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
Don't open
They
up!
said they spelt learning wrong.
Don't open up!
How do you have ice here, ma'am? I'm literally a YouTuber.
Don't open up!
Ma'am, what do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Don't open up! We have ice!
And what do you think about this place being licensed for 99 children
Don't open up!
and getting $4 million over
Don't
the
open up! It's ice!
$4 million in the last 2 years?
Go away!
What do you think about that? Are you in
Go
favor?
away!
Are you in favor of that?
Go away!
You know
You're
what it-
not welcome here.
Are you-
Shame on you.
Are you in favor of $1.9
Shame
million
on you. It's
going
ice.
illegally,
Don't open up!
fraudulently to this business that has Quality Learning Center but can't even spell learning right on the door?
Don't open up!
Ma'am, we are not ICE.
I don't care who you are. You don't belong here.
I belong here just like you belong here.
Don't open up! It's ice!
You do realize that there's supposed to be 99 children right here at this building, but there's no one here. This is a child daycare
Minnesota
center.
says 99 children. Paid $1.9 million this year in CCAP funding. Do you know where the children are? Were they kidnapped? They run away? Where are the children? This is state of Minnesota. Right here.
And who are you?
My name's Nick Shirley, ma'am.
And who are you with?
Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley on YouTube.
Yeah, so who are you with here?
Oh, he's just been doing some research investigating the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm with Nick Shirley.
This lady, she's calling us ICE. We're just trying to put law and order back in the streets of the United States. Get rid of all the fraud.
You know, when you watch that video, there's multiple. The reason why I love that clip is there's multiple aspects of that clip. It is impossible not to read the sign, Learing Center. It is impossible not to see how passionate both Nick and Dave are. But it is impossible to ignore what I tell you all the time, that the number one most dangerous person in the United States of America is the white liberal female. I mean, she is a prime example of why we should still have the asylums for the insane. This woman is nuts, right? Now, she doesn't care about Learning Center. All she cares about, oh, this is ICE. This is ICE. Think about how freaking stupid you've got to be. How do you even get up in the morning like that woman gets up in the morning? Why doesn't she have a job? But regardless, what Shirley and Dave do there, as sad as this is going to sound, that man and that young boy, 23 years old, has done more in 42 minutes, exposing what will turn out to be the largest fraud system ever to take place in the United States of America from a financial standpoint. The greatest fraud of all time in the United States is obviously the 2020 election when it was stolen, when it was absolutely stolen. But this, from a financial standpoint, is the greatest fraud ever. Can you imagine we invite these Somalians into our country and the first, second, and last thing that they do is sit there and steal our money? You'd think they'd say thank you for getting them out of the crap hole that we took them out of, giving them all the opportunities. But no, instead they want to steal your money. They want to steal my money. These people are scum, and we're going to talk about how it is that they need to be sent back to the third world country that they came from. I want all immigration throughout the world stopped. I've been saying it for years, and finally people are catching on. But go back to Nick, Shirley, and Dave for 1 second. They accomplished more in 42 minutes than we have ever seen this entire year from the mainstream media, from the Department of Justice, from the FBI, from Health and Human Services, or the IRS. What that young man just did cost him nothing. I've made these kind of videos before, but in film. And I can tell you, if I had a guess, you're talking about Nick having, I don't know where Nick Shirley lives, but you're talking about him having to get a flight, having to pay for some security, having to have a camera person, and it's not even a sophisticated camera at that. I think it's probably something like a GoPro, all right, because it's got to be quick and nimble. I mean, if that video cost him $1,000, and meanwhile, every single one of those entities I just brought up, FBI, DOJ, mainstream media, IRS, they've got billions in their budgets collectively. This kid does this for $1,000. Because you want to know what this proves? What you just watched and what you will watch in this video proves that it is not a matter of money. It is a matter of will. All it takes is willpower. And we're going to talk in a couple of minutes about how this is just the tip of the iceberg. Let me tell you something. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And I wrote yesterday on my X account, and I'm telling you, even Ryan sent me a text message last night, and I said to my wife, I said, look, Ryan's right on it. I think every single last filmmaker, myself included, anybody who is a newsy filmmaker, like Nick Shirley, Dinesh D'Souza, Dennis Michael Lynch, James O'Keefe, I think we all have a responsibility to go out with our cameras and capture this fraud in that same sort of raw way, because it's happening everywhere. And what all we need, really, to be honest, is we need more Daves, the older man in that video. And I think this is a perfect example. You know, one of the things I've talked about on this show ever since Charlie Kirk died. The great thing about TPUSA, or at least was, I think they need to find their groove again. But the great thing about TPUSA is that it brings together all these young people who are going to wind up being the future of America. But let's not forget about the importance of people like you and me. You know, my audience is 90% 45 and older, right? 45 and older. Well, the great thing about this video is that it takes the wisdom and the experience that people like you and I have. That's Dave. We need more Daves. And then it takes the young, aggressive, I want my country to provide me with something because I want to believe in the American dream, like Nick. And it meshes those two worlds together. It takes the youth, it takes the wisdom, and it makes it into this most powerful entity. And you just saw it in that video. So yeah, I'm going to reach out. In fact, I'm interviewing Dinesh D'Souza in about 2 weeks for this show. And I'm going to tell Dinesh, we should be out. And we've got the resources. We've got money. We're older. We need to go out and do this same thing. We got to let this 23-year-old inspire us to go out and help the fraud, because we can't depend on Fox News or anybody else to do it anymore. Oh, no way. No way. Here's a little something. Here's a little bit more about Dave. And I'm going to play one more thing about Dave, another interview he did, because I want you, knowing that my audience, 90% 45 and older, I want you to be inspired by Dave. Here's a video of Dave being interviewed by somebody right outside the Capitol there in Minnesota.
Massive fraud is going on here in the state of Minnesota, especially in Minneapolis. Explain to me what's going on with the daycares.
So one of the things that I've noticed is there's an exceptional number of child care centers that are set up mostly in Minneapolis, but also in St. Paul. And I said, wow, how many kids are there in the Twin Cities? Some of them are by my office, and I would watch, and I said, well, there aren't any kids there. And I go to another one, there aren't any kids there, and I'd see just some Somali guys outside smoking cigarettes. So I stopped at one of them, and I said, hey, I'm just wondering, I've got a grandson who's looking for childcare, and I wonder if this might be a good facility. And they said, no, we're all full. And they had the door open, and I looked, and there were no kids. There was like a couch and a table with a couple chairs. And I said, well, are the kids out back playing, or what kind of place is this? And the guy said, you go. And he almost pushed me out the door, and then he followed me down the street to my car. And that's when I said, wait a minute, there's something going on here. And that's got to be maybe 5 years ago. This fraud is so massive. When the dust settles on this, it's going to be found to be the largest fraud in the history of the country and probably the world. It's that big. The ones that I've gotten data on, they average about $2.5 million a year, and a lot of them will say they have anywhere from 80 to 120 children. I've been to literally 40 or 50 of these childcare, and there never has been a single child at any one of them ever. Morning, afternoon, evening. Some of them say they're open till 10 o'clock at night. I go there in the morning, I go there in the afternoon, I go there at 9 o'clock at night. Nobody. There are no kids there ever.
So there you go. In a world that is desperate for Daves, be a Dave. And you don't have to be a guy, be a gal, be a Dave. Do a little work to help your country, because you know what? If you don't have Dave, if we don't have Nick Shirley, this is going to continue. That's the problem. And like I said, it's just the tip of the iceberg, and we're going to get to that in a second. But I want to spend a little time here about Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, who I believe has allowed this to happen and turned a blind eye. Here is Nick Shirley yesterday on Fox News, and listen to what it is that Tim Walz has to say. Play it.
This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy.
So it sounds to me, Nick, that Governor Tim Walz is saying that you and others that are out there trying to expose this, you're doing it because you're white supremacists. What is your response to him?
Yeah, Tim wants votes. There are entire apartment complexes where white people have been pushed out of these apartment complexes because Somalians have taken over, and they're inside of these towns like Minneapolis, where they can go get votes from these people. And if you have 100,000 people that will vote for you because you're going to enable and let this stuff happen, and because you're going to call a white person racist for calling out facts, this is what's going to happen to a state like Minnesota. Minnesotans, they say Minnesota nice, but they are very upset. And I totally understand why they're upset, because they don't have a governor who's actually working for them. He's actually working against them.
Nick, your video's been viewed 93 million times. What do you think will be the result of this? Do you think that things will change because of bringing attention to this, or do you think it'll be much the same, swept under the rug and keep moving forward?
Yeah, there better be change. People are demanding it. The investigations have been launched just from that video alone. And so there better be change, because like I said, we work way too hard to be paying taxes. We work way too hard to be not knowing where our money's going. And at the end of the day, the people in the government, they work for us. We don't work for them. And so it's their responsibility to hold these people accountable. And so if there's not something that's happened, people are going to be very frustrated. And so if President Trump's watching this, it's time to really get down to nitty gritty and to make a difference in this place of Minnesota that is pretty much like Somaliland right now.
You know, what he said right there is spot on correct. And I usually don't play videos of myself, but I'm going to play this one. Yesterday, I was so fired up about what I'm watching here. And, Kash Patel is on X telling people that, hey, listen, the FBI is on this. We're on this, right? And Trump keeps on talking about how the Somalis and, Third World and Ilhan Omar and everything else. And I think what has happened here, if I could kind of put this into a fireball, we're tired of it, man. We are tired of it. And as American people, especially conservatives, we're going to give you an incredible amount of rope. And we're going to give you an incredible amount of support. We're going to cheer for you. We're going to say, yeah, yeah. And even when the left comes up with something that may even have a little bit of credibility to its point, we're still going to slam it down because we're going to defend our guy. We're going to defend our team, knowing that they just need a little bit more time. Just a little bit more time. Just a little bit more time. Well, it's been a year. And there's a lot of people, myself included, who are starting to get disgruntled with the fact that there isn't enough action being taken against the fraudulent activity. You know, it all started with Doge. We're like, yeah, Doge, we're getting in there. This is what I voted for. And then all of a sudden that died off. And now we've been talking about the Somali, Minnesota stuff now for a long time. And if Nick Shirley and Dave don't go doing what they did, this is still going on. Now with the lens, with the camera pointing at all this fraud and you can't escape it, now we're going to take some action. Well, I'll tell you what, I was frustrated. And at the same time as I appreciate the president, I'm going to support the president, I'm going to support the FBI, and I'm going to support our team. But they got to start posting up some numbers. Securing the border and getting the economy kind of okay is great. It's not enough. Make America great again is not one slice of a pie. To make America great again, you need all the slices together. Nobody goes in and says, yeah, I'll have a pizza pie, please, a large to go. And then you get one slice in your box. You go home, you're pissed off. You feel like you got screwed. You want the other 7 pieces. You're just not going to be happy that you got one. That's how people are starting to feel. Other than my video on the, which I was telling you about earlier, when I went in and I exposed Dearborn, Michigan, on X, this is the #1 video I've ever posted, and it's had millions of plays, and it is not even 24 hours old. Ryan's going to play it right now, and the reason being is because I know this is how you feel. Go. This is going to be the shortest video I've ever done in my life, based on what we've all seen in Minnesota. If tens of thousands of Somalis are not deported back to their third world country, and if government officials like Tim Walz and other people in Minnesota are not sent to jail or at least indicted, let me just say this. This administration, the concept of Make America Great Again, and for that matter, the rule of law, are all completely full of shit. Nothing else to say. Full stop. Case closed. And that's really what it comes down to, does it not? If we don't post up some indictments, if we don't send people back to Somalia, then this is all full of it. It's all full of it. It's all built on lies. The rule of law, the Make America Great Again promise, it turns out to be nothing more than a hat. Things need to happen this time. People aren't going to fade away on this. They need to happen. Now, Tim Walz was confronted at an event over the weekend, and this guy is going to keep on playing the white supremacy BS and the fact that he has done everything he possibly can do to try to stop this fraud. Ryan, play the Tim Walz video. Play.
Governor Walz, what can you say about the latest on the Somali fraud that happened under your watch, sir?
Governor, have you been able to apologize yet to the people of Minnesota for allowing this Somali fraud to continue under your watch?
Of the people of Minnesota.
Is it time to apologize? How about the whistleblowers that you have allegedly retaliated against? Would you like to respond to the whistleblowers?
And right now, our neighbors are being demonized. Our neighbors are being terrorized. Our neighbors are being picked up off the streets. The antidote to that is positive actions to improve lives that go against what they're trying to do. So instead of demonizing our Somali community, we're going to do more to welcome more in and welcome people back. Instead of cutting programs, we're going to demand.
You know, one of the reasons why Tim Walz has no fear, and he's going to show no fear at all, is because he's got an entire half of this country defending him. You got like that nut who was sitting outside the Leering Center who, kept on filming Nick Shirley and Dave saying, they're ICE, just psychotics are always going to have his back. And then you've got the mainstream media. Now, here's an amazing thing. Any other video, imagine if it was a black man getting beat by a white man and it went viral with 100 million views on X. it would be leading on the New York Times, the CNN, it's all those liberal medias. Go to New York Times. I've done it for you. Today, this is not even mentioned. The Nick Shirley video, the Minnesota fraud is not even mentioned. They're talking about Zelensky, which is another fraudulent program going on with all the money we've sent them. Let's investigate that one. Although I wouldn't want to see Nick Shirley be going into Ukraine. I don't think he makes it out. And then, of course, they've got a whole story here from Marjorie Taylor Greene about how she feels she was so naive. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene's a whole nother show, right? I'd like to see about fraud with her. How much money has she made trading stocks that she's so freaking wealthy? And, I don't understand why people on the right continue to give left any sort of interviews. Look at the picture they use of her. I mean, she couldn't look more ugly and demonic, right? But they're not covering any of this story. They're going to blow it off, and that's why Tim Walz feels as if he's going to escape this 100%. Now, Fox News asked Tim Walz for a comment. Here's what it is from Fox News. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's office is pushing back against fraud allegations after a viral video showed visits to multiple child care centers in the state, including one that allegedly received millions of dollars in state funding, despite appearing largely inactive. Responding to questions about the allegations and the video posted by Nick Shirley, a spokesperson for the governor told Fox News that Walz has spent years working to crack down on fraud and has taken steps to strengthen oversight of state programs, including initiating investigations into several facilities. Really? Well, where did the investigation end when he went to the Leering Center? Where did that investigation go? I don't recall it. Where did that end up? These operations are still ongoing. They're still getting the money. In fact, the Minnesota Department of Human Services came out with posts on social media saying, hey, Tim Walz is not doing the right thing. We have been screaming about this. I mean, you've got state officials, state workers saying there's massive fraud. Ryan, do we have the video of the woman who was killed? I had sent that to you. Did you get that one? The state lawmaker? Did we have that one? How long is that video? Minute? Okay. I'm sorry. I can't remember this woman's name, but you may recall there was one Democrat. I think she was a Democrat or maybe I don't know what she was, but she was a state lawmaker in Minnesota. It happened 6 months ago. My mind is frazzled, or 8 months ago. And she voted against giving illegal aliens in Minnesota any sort of services, any sort of money. And she was shot dead. She was shot dead shortly after doing that. Play the video of this, Ryan. Give everybody the reminder.
I know that people will be hurt by that vote. And we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision.
DFL Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman emotional following the House's adjournment from a special session Monday. Hortman was the lone DFL lawmaker to cast a vote to cut Minnesota Care access for undocumented immigrants. It's a move she made with a heavy heart.
I did what leaders do. I stepped up and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota.
The bill was deeply unpopular with members of the DFL caucus. Members have repeatedly expressed frustration that the bill was part of a compromise, one that would ensure the necessary GOP votes to pass the rest of the state budget.
We are tremendously disappointed and gut-wrenched at this decision, at this compromise that compromises our communities that are most vulnerable.
Hortman knows she let down her own caucus members with the vote.
They're right to be mad at me. I think some of them are pretty angry. I think that their job was to make folks who voted for that bill feel like crap, and I think that they succeeded.
There you go. Her name, by the way, was Melissa Hortman, and she was a Democrat, and she wound up getting killed. And no doubt she got killed because she voted against her own party. That's the danger in all this. You know, you talk about danger, too, as well. I circled here, and I wrote down the word security. One of the things that I did was I reached out to Nick Shirley over the weekend, and I said to him, listen, you now are going to have a target on your back, and you have got to take seriously your security, and you've got to learn all self-defense that you possibly can in situations. I remember that's one of the things I invested in heavily I went one time to give a speech, and I did not realize that there would be protesters there. And these protesters circled around me. And I got out of it, didn't have to fight, but I thought I was going to have to fight for my life. And when I came home, I wound up taking a special, like a combat, hand-to-hand combat instruction. And I did it for about 10 weeks, to where when you're in situations that are very frightening, not that you want to win the fight, you want to escape the fight, you know, how to do certain things. And I'll tell you, but Nick Shirley has got to, he has a target on his back now more than ever. And I know a kid like that, his mindset is that he's going to try to propel himself to the next one. And so I hope President Trump and I hope the FBI are speaking to him and going to do all they possibly can to help that young man. So this way he's not the next Melissa Hortman. And I say that because it is a serious concern. And, you know, you got to ask yourself something. What made Kamala Harris say, yeah, I'll pick Tim Walz for my VP? Think about that. Did Kamala Harris and the whole Democrat Party realize how much fraud was taking place in Minnesota, and that would be a funding mechanism for all of their fraud and all of their campaign? Do not think for 1 second the Democrat Party did not know and does not know what Tim Walz has going on up there in Minnesota. They absolutely know it. And you want to know what I'm tired of, and I know you're tired of it, and Ryan's tired of it, and everybody's tired of it. And these days are over. Tim Walz is going to keep on using the argument of white supremacy. White supremacy. My ass. Okay, white supremacy, my ass. Tim Walz, you are a white man, and I think you are slime. If I had the choice between saving you and saving Ben Carson, I could only save one person. I have a bottle of water, and you're both thirsty, and you're going to pass out. I'm giving it to the black man named Ben Carson. You, I'm giving nothing to. So trust me when I tell you, our outrage as Americans have nothing to do with the color of skin. This has nothing to do about the Somalis being dark-skinned. If all the Somalis had red hair and blue eyes like my fellow Irishmen, or, you know, nice Sylvester Stallone parted hair like my fellow Italians, they'd be just as held guilty. We need people to be held guilty. I want you in jail, Tim Walz. I want you, a white man with white hair, in jail, because you are a scumbag, and so are all the other different people who are part of your Look the Other Way organizations and agencies. You are a detriment to the state of Minnesota. Thank God we ducked the bullet of you being the vice president. Good heavens, what kind of person votes for that? Piece of garbage. White supremacy. White supremacy? What about white-collar crime is what you are. You are a criminal. Now, with that being said, this is happening everywhere. This is the tip of the iceberg. Nick, Shirley, and Dave have just hit the tip of the iceberg. Here is a video of a black woman from Ohio begging Nick Shirley to come investigate Ohio because it's got the same thing. Play the video.
Nick Shirley, I hope you see this video. Please come to Columbus, Ohio. The reporting you did in Minnesota was amazing. Thank you for that. And if you come to Columbus, Ohio, you will find the exact same fraud. You will see the exact same things. Daycares everywhere. The home health care. I mentioned that in my video. I do not have your bravery to go out here and knock on doors like you did. I don't even want to leave my room right now, okay? But you could come here and do what needs to be done. Please, please investigate. Please talk to our government officials. And you see how the police escorted you out of that building? The Columbus police are on the same take, I am sure. Allegedly. Let me say allegedly before I got the Columbus police coming after me, as well as the Somalis. It's a lot. In the meantime, please come here and investigate. You will find the exact same things. And the rest of the country needs to know that it is real. Thank you for all you are doing. And please, please, please stay safe.
Okay, Now, I don't want you to think I just randomly took one-off video that did well and went viral. I am going to now give you, this woman's name is Mahik Cook. She is a Republican lawyer out of the state of Ohio. She confirms what it is that this woman's talking about. Listen to the fraud and how it works. Play it.
So these individuals tried to report the fraud that was happening in Ohio and then eventually came to me to say that we're watching providers rubber stamp paperwork for home health. So in Ohio, and there's many states like this, Pennsylvania and other states too, where you can go in and you can say my aging parent needs a home health care and I want to provide it. So the state will, as long as a doctor has approved it, continue to pay you. It could be for 10 hours, 12 hours, up to 24 when it's critical care. So you could sit at home without caring for an elderly parent who really doesn't need it, make about $75,000 to $90,000 a year. Now you add two parents, that's $180,000. Now you add your in-laws, $250,000. You continue to add this and you wonder, what are the services being provided? So a lot of providers came and said, fraud is occurring because we said we weren't going to rubber stamp this paperwork, so they went to other providers. Their home healthcare network saying, we'll make it worth your while. Well, sounds like a kickback to me. So we really need to investigate the Medicaid system and how much it's increased since the Somalian population came and who really needs critical care, because that's meant for our disabled, our elderly, and people who really need it, not to just live off our system. And that's what's happening in Ohio. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's despicable, but authorities are now looking at it from the Attorney General's office to the U.S. Attorney's office. I flagged them all because this is Ohio tax dollars and we have to take it seriously. I'm tired of people telling me, well, this is the way it's always been. It's subjective and we can't really check. No, you can. Audit America, audit Ohio now. And I'm pushing for that in every single state.
Okay, so a couple of things I want to give you. I'm going to talk about Tim Walz having to pay for this, but my other son just sent me a text and said, hey, Dad, Nick Shirley actually went to Ukraine to expose how our money being sent over there was being used to purchase high-ticket items. So my apologies to both you and to Nick Shirley for not knowing that. I mean, this kid is a missile, man. He is a missile. You know, watch out for Nick Shirley. I mean, what a wonderful, wonderful American citizen. So let me just tell you this. I went to an AI that specializes in legal. And so I put, what has to happen to Governor Tim Walz to be indicted on fraud based on the billions stolen by Somalis in Minnesota? The question of an indictment for a public official like Governor Walz involves several high bars in both the legal and investigative realms. To date, while there have been dozens of convictions and more than 90 people indicted in various Minnesota fraud scandals, primarily the Feeding Our Future case, Governor Walz himself has not been charged with a crime. For a governor to be indicted on fraud, several specific legal and procedural thresholds would typically need to be met. In other words, it ain't ever happening, folks, because first they have to prove that there was intent. He had actual knowledge that the money was being stolen. He intentionally participated in the scheme or purposely turned a blind eye in exchange for benefit, such as a campaign donation or political favor. That has got to be the one thing that we've got on our side. It's going to take huge investigating, but that is probably the lowest hanging fruit on the tree. An audit by the Office of the Legislative Auditor in June of 2024 found that the Minnesota Department of Education's oversight was inadequate and created opportunities for fraud. However, the report attributed this to systemic failures and missed warning signs rather than criminal intent by the governor. So it's going to be tough. The second thing is you would need proof of a quid pro quo. Investigators would need to find direct evidence, emails, recordings, or witness testimony showing that Walz allowed the fraud to continue specifically because he was receiving something of value in exchange. Current status: congressional Republicans, led by the House Oversight Chairman James Comer, launched an investigation in December 2025 looking into whether campaign contributions from community leaders influenced the state's response. To result in an indictment, this investigation would need to uncover a direct link between those funds and an official act to protect the fraudsters. And that's where I was going with the whole Kamala Harris thing, right? Overcoming good faith defenses is the next thing. A major hurdle in such cases is the good faith defense. Walsh has consistently argued that A, the state did flag the fraud to the FBI in early 2021. 2, the state was sued by Feeding Our Future and was cautioned by a judge that it could not stop payments without more specific evidence at the time. The freaking court system in this country has lost its way. So the courts in that particular case said, no, we're not going to, you've got to prove that there's real fraud. Otherwise, keep on sending that money. These judges, they play with complete immunity. That's part of the problem. That's why, you get these judges, somebody's been locked up 50 times. On 51, they let this person go out. The person goes out and kills somebody, and the judge just says, shucks. No, the judge should be held as a co-conspirator. Same thing in this case. The FBI requested the state continue payments to avoid tipping off the suspects during the investigation. To indict, a prosecutor would have to prove these explanations were a pretext or a cover-up. So it goes on to tell it. I'm telling you in short, don't hold your breath for Tim Walsh to be held accountable. Now, next question. Can anyone from the departments that pay out the monies be held liable criminally? Yes. Government employees can be held criminally liable, but the legal standard for doing so is much higher than the standard for firing someone for being bad at their job. In the Minnesota cases you're referring to, liability usually falls into 3 categories: administrative, civil, and criminal. So the criminal liability is the highest bar. For a department employee to be charged with a crime, prosecutors must prove intent or corruption. Mere negligence, even gross negligence that costs taxpayers millions, is generally not a crime. To be indicted, an employee would typically need to be guilty of 1, bribery and kickbacks, 2, conspiracy, which means they're actively working with the fraudsters to bypass security controls or falsify records. Next, official misconduct, which would be specifically targets public employees who intentionally fail to perform mandatory duty or act in excess of their authority, knowing it is forbidden. And knowing is freaking emphasized because they could just say they didn't know, right? Plausible deniability. Falsifying records. If anybody falsified records and they prove that, they're in trouble. The current situation is this. As of late 2025, over 90 individuals, which I told you, mostly nonprofit leaders and contractors, have been indicted, but no state employees from the Department of Education or the Department of Health and Human Services have been criminally charged for the oversight failures. Investigators have characterized their actions as inadequate oversight rather than criminal collusion. This is how sad this stuff is. And so the last thing I asked was, what about Ilhan Omar? Can we get rid of this chick? Can we get rid of her? Can we start deporting her? Because if you go back to the video that I had said, if we don't have people deported and we don't have people freaking in government held accountable, you can't have that much fraud taking place and just say that everybody was inept at their job. There is absolute connections here. We just got to connect the dots. There needs to be the will. There needs to be the will that Nick Shirley showed. We need to have that kind of will at the DOJ and the FBI. And many people are getting disappointed in Pam Bondi. They're very disappointed in Kash Patel. They're saying you're not doing enough. Come on, we voted you in. We thought that we were going to make America great again. And why are you stalling? And this is what's making people frustrated. Now, in order to be able to get rid of Ilhan Omar, under U.S. law, the process for removing a naturalized citizen like Representative Ilhan Omar is complex and involves several distinct legal phases. While the U.S. government cannot simply deport a citizen, it can seek to denaturalize them if it is proven that their citizenship was obtained through fraud. It's called the denaturalization process, and I'm telling you, there has got to be a way that we can get rid of this woman legally if somebody in Washington, D.C. has the Nick Shirley Dave will. Damn it, if this doesn't happen, I'll end the show on this. If we do not hold these people accountable, if the American voter does not see that from the top to the bottom, not just the Somali easy go to grab off the bottom of the freaking tree, the low-hanging fruit, there are so many people. The people that were running these complexes, that running these so-called businesses, all of them need to be indicted. All of them need to be sent back to Somalia. I don't want to put them in jail for 20 years and have to pay for their asses. Get rid of them. Stop all of this garbage by making a freaking example of these people. Send them back. Send Ilhan Omar back. Make Governor Walz have to go through every single last painful thing that Donald Trump had to go through to try to run for president again. Make him feel the pain. Let's turn Minnesota red again. You know, when you look at the most radical states, Minnesota is at the top, just there right next to California, if not worse. You know, when Ronald Reagan ran the board, 49 states, there was only one state that didn't vote for him, Minnesota. So keep that in mind. These Minnesota people, they walk around, they're all nice, and Minnesota nice? No. This is, when I talk about how the Muslim invasion in this country, let's end on this. When I talk about the Muslim invasion in this country, that is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. It has taken place. You've seen small cities or towns like Dearborn taken over. You see these epic city models in Texas where they want to take these big, huge swaths of property and just make it into an Islamic haven. That has now moved into cities. New York City. You want to know what the next iteration of what this show is going to be stuck in, like we can't get past it, is going to be what's happening to New York City. When Mamdani takes over, you've already seen it. He just hired a lesbian, no experience with the fire department, to be a woman, to be the chief of the department. She's going to be the head of the whole thing. You got to be kidding me. So when you look at that city is going completely Islam. We're never going to get it back. And then it's going to go to a state. And that first state in line is going to be Minnesota, unless Trump and the DOJ does something about this. The days of you saying, I'm moving to Florida because that's a conservative haven, or I'm moving to California because it's highly liberal, those days are going to be gone. It's now going to be, I'm moving to Florida because it's Christian, or I'm moving out of Minnesota because it's Islamic. We need to take action here, President Trump. If we do not, people will not show up for the midterms. That is a guarantee. They will not show up for the midterms because they're going to feel as if you're sitting back with all your team and doing nothing to protect the American citizen who's paying for all of this. It is our money being stolen. You're paying your taxes every single year. You're paying tax on your Social Security, and it's going to effing Somalia. We're tired of it. You're pissing on us. You're freaking pissing down our skull, and it's got to end. It's got to end now. And that's that. So, with that being said, thank you. Please hit the share button. And, you know, the big thing about Nick Shirley's video, I just looked while we were playing the thing. 113 million views. Do you want to know why? Because just on X alone, it was retweeted 202,000 times. That's how this got. You know, Nick Shirley did his part with the camera, but you did your part with sharing it. That's how stories go viral. So when you share this program, when you share my little videos that you see all the time, you're doing your part. If you don't share, you don't care. And that's what we need to have more of. So please hit the share button. Tell more people about the Dennis Michael Lynch Show. Have them come on in and follow us on X, on Instagram. You want to watch Nick Shirley's video? You haven't seen it? Go to x.com/trustdml. That's trustdml. That's my handle, @trustdml. It's a couple of videos down. You'll see it. It's there for you. You'll be able to watch it. And please, if you haven't already, if you want to support us, go be a member of Team DML. Go to teamdml.com. For just $20 for the entire year, you'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a show. You'll get to live chat with other people. We've got thousands of members. Go in there and help us help you. And that's it for me. Thank you, Ryan, for participating. Thank you for all of you for sharing. God willing, we will be with you again tomorrow. Until then, may God bless you. May God bless our troops, the United States of America, the president, and your entire family. We'll talk to you soon.
Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML. Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML. Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML. Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML. Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store.